Hello, friends, and welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Welcome back to the Powerful Podcast, where we are highlighting a few of the amazing women competing for Team USA this summer in both the Olympics and Paralympics in Paris. I am so thrilled to be joined by our next guest. This is a woman who is making history this summer. She is a doctor of occupational therapy, a native of Illinois, and the very first woman ever to make the U.S. Paralympic wheelchair rugby team. Sarah Adam, welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's start with the history, because I want to get into your story and the sport that is known as Murderball for those who follow it closely. But first, let's talk about you becoming the very first woman to make the U.S. Paralympic rugby team. Since the sport joined the Paralympic Games in 2000 in Sydney, there have been a handful of women, but you're the first for Team USA. How did that feel when your name got called, that you were officially on the roster?
Honestly, a surreal moment. Put in a lot of hard work in those last couple of years. Still a relatively new player, but very surreal. And then to be named as the first woman, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now and in the United States with the growth of women in sports and female in sports with Caitlin Clark and all these wonderful female athletes that are just being finally being highlighted in the media in the way that I think we've deserved for a really long time. And to continue to be a part of breaking down those barriers has been just a surreal moment, and really excited to be named and head to Paris.
Yeah, let's talk about the moment that is happening right now for women's sports, because obviously you and I have been in it for a really long time. It's been something that I've highlighted throughout my 10 plus years in broadcasting and tried to, talk to the Sabrina Ionescu, Satu Sablis, like the list goes on and on of the women that we've gotten a chance to work through. But what do you think has made this moment in women's sports so contagious, so electric?
I think people are falling in love with our stories. We're finally getting to tell our stories, the human side of things, what we're doing off the court as well as on the court. And then, really women having the opportunities to elevate our game on the court and show that we can be just as exciting, just as competitive as our male counterparts. And to add to that we're joining sports that have been considered male dominated for years and saying, no, we have a place in this space as well. And that's, I think, really what's unique for me with wheelchair rugby that is so significantly male dominated. We've had a couple women sparse here and there. And, even on Team USA, we've had a couple women that have made the training squads, but to be able to really compete and show that we can compete at that elite level as females right alongside our male counterparts has been fun and really exciting. I think really necessary to show right now.
Well, and that's something that is unique even to wheelchair rugby. It is one of the few mixed gender sports that we have in the Paralympics and the Olympics. So explain to people who may not know about, quote, I don't even know if it's like the 2005 documentary was called Murderball. And when you watch it, you understand why the collisions are fierce. So how would you describe your sport of wheelchair rugby?
Yeah, obviously called Murderball for a reason. It's the only full contact wheelchair sport in the Paralympics. So we're in chairs that are kind of fully armored up like a Mad Max. And then it's like full speed bumper cars. So very exciting to watch everybody going in full speed, hitting each other, flipping over in our chairs, really an opportunity to break down multiple stereotypes of, people with disabilities, that they're fragile and we need to protect them. And it's like, I'm getting in a chair. I'm going to go full speed head on with my opponent, with the goal, like one of the goals being to flip them over in their chair. And that high speed full collision is really exciting for anybody, even if you don't know the ins and outs of the game. Certainly fun to watch.
Well, yeah, because the wheelchairs that you guys are using, right, it's not the same kind of wheelchair as what you just get around in day to day. This is a battering ram. Like, this is a full force. Give me like the specs of a wheelchair that is used in wheelchair rugby in terms of the adaptations that you put on it to be prepared to go head on into whoever is in your way and try to flip them over.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I love is the evolution of the sport. And we can't talk about the evolution of the sport without talking about the equipment that we use. And it certainly started with something that looks similar to what you see an everyday wheelchair user using. But obviously, if I go out on the court in my everyday chair and go hit somebody, it's probably going to break my chair and myself. So it's evolved.
Not ideal. Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. It evolved to look a little bit more. I know a lot of more people are familiar with the wheelchair basketball and what those wheelchairs look like, where it's just, a little bit more agility based, a little bit wider wheels. So we can do these really quick turns without flipping ourselves over, go really, really fast, obviously in a straight line. But even the basketball chairs were falling apart and breaking when we were going full contact into each other. And so we added a whole bunch of armor to the front and the back, and even on the wheels, there's some armor on there to take that hit, because the guys are coming in really, really fast, really hard, as well as the females. But, there's something about a 200-pound male coming full speed for you that I appreciate a chair that's going to take most of that hit, because 140-pound me certainly isn't.
Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit more. The collisions that happen in wheelchair rugby, how did you develop the instinct to absorb that blow, but then maybe even more impressively, go out there and do the flipping yourself?
Yeah, so I think something that's a little bit unique about my role on Team USA and internationally is I'm one of the first female high pointers. So within our sport, there's a whole range of functional abilities to people who, like myself, have quite a bit of function in our hands and our arms. We can go really fast, we can catch and throw. And then there's people with a little bit less function. That's the whole purpose of the Paralympics, is to give people with various abilities the opportunity to compete at the high level. So there's a lot of strategy in being able to utilize those folks who are maybe have a little less function, less arm strength, less core strength. And they're in a slightly different chair. And so a lot of our females that have been in this sport are in those lower function sort of defensive roles where they're not handling the ball very much. So I'm one of the first ones out there that is a primary ball handler for our team. And so the other team has to come hit me and try to get that ball out of my lap before I go score that goal. And I have to do the same thing. My role on the team defensively is to go attack their number one player. And their most functional player, and try to get the ball off his lap or flip him out of his chair. And so I think, to me, it's a lot of strategy involved, because I'm not a very large individual. I think I'm pretty strong given my small size. But the strength only gets you so far. So it's a lot of the strategy and using my brain and thinking 3 steps ahead, and really thinking of rugby as a chess match and kind of outsmarting the guys, I guess I would say.
Okay, we like that. We like the ability to outsmart your opponents in addition to flip them over. So I want to come back to just sort of how you have gone from a good wheelchair rugby player to one who is making this history. But first, let's go all the way back to the beginning, because you talk a little bit about, just your athletic background. And you played softball growing up. You had brothers as well, which, as an older sister, I definitely had a little bit of an impact on my brother's ability to navigate the world because of the, sibling razzing that I put him through growing up, as well as my little sister. Give me a little bit of an idea. What was it like growing up in the Adam household?
That sounds very familiar to maybe yours, with the sibling rivalry going on, but
super competitive.
Very, very competitive. Our whole family was. My mom and my dad were both athletes, really great athletes, and a lot of people in our family are. My brother is, and so growing up, I honestly played sports a lot with him. He's a year older than I am, and playing on his team. So I was surrounded by a bunch of men playing soccer and basketball and baseball and any sport that we could possibly get our hands on. And that's what our family did on the weekends. We're going to the baseball field or the soccer pitch or all over the place. And thankful to have those opportunities and that outlet to be able to compete. And then didn't switch to being mostly with females until honestly late middle school, early high school. And that was when things were able to be really competitive for me throughout high school, and then playing college softball for a year. So I can't even imagine a world where sports isn't a part of my life. So I think that was really important for me when we talk about, the diagnosis with MS, and I can no longer play rec softball and rec kickball and have that sport outlet. To be able to play adaptive sports and reconnect with my identity as an elite athlete was everything. I needed that in that moment. And Did I ever think it was going to end up being an elite athlete at the Team USA level? Absolutely not. But such an honor and an amazing opportunity to compete at the elite level as an adult. And I've been reflecting on that quite a bit lately of what that means to be able with a little bit more maturity under my belt, and something that not a lot of adults get to go do.
Yeah, let's talk about your transition from collegiate softball player to then your introduction to wheelchair rugby, because it wasn't first as a player.
Yeah, it was actually, I'd been playing 1 year of college softball, threw my shoulder out, decided to go coach. I love coaching. And to this day, I still love coaching and the mentoring aspect. And you see a lot of that in the way that I teach as a professor at St. Louis University. But, I wanted, when I came down to St. Louis for school for occupational therapy, I wanted to combine that love of occupational therapy and my love of sports and continue coaching in some way. And for me, adaptive sports was the clear way to do that. And so reached out to some local St. Louis organizations and connected with our local wheelchair rugby team that just happens to be filled with Paralympic athletes. Like we're like a farming house for Paralympic USA wheelchair rugby. But got to learn so much from them and be around the sport and fell in love with the sport. As an able-bodied, before I even knew that I had MS, it just had all those components, again, of the high-speed collision, but also for me, it's kind of like softball. When you get to know it really intimately and you know the game really, really well, you see there's so much strategy involved in thinking 3 steps ahead and using your brain and thinking to have the advantage, the small advantages over your opponents. And that's what I love about wheelchair rugby and fell in love with as an able-bodied.
Yeah, so you were a volunteer, right? And then you were training to be a coach when you got your diagnosis in 2013?
I started the diagnosis in 13 and then got officially diagnosed in 2016. It takes a while with MS. They're ruling out other things. There's a lot of diagnostics that have to happen. But yeah, 2016.
So what were the first signs for you that you started thinking, hey, something's not right here?
It took a while. I had ignored a lot of signs. They actually think I was a pediatric case. I was playing baseball when I was 9 years old and got hit in the mouth with the baseball, kind of turned my glove and then it hit me. And the teeth came out, and so I think when they put those in, I got an infection, and that's what they think may have sparked that overreaction in my body, which resulted in MS. So when I look back, there's actually symptoms when I was in high school, like some numbness in my hand. I stopped playing some of the sports that required a lot of running, like basketball and soccer, stuck with just softball and golf and some of those. And, and when I was in graduate school, they talk about med school syndrome, and people that are studying different conditions think that they have it. And I was like the complete opposite. I could explain away just about any symptom that came my way. But I was in graduate school for OT, and we were doing some assessments on each other. And my professor said, hey, what's going on with your hand? And I was treated for a hand injury for a little while. And then some other symptoms pop up that were clearly neurological that I couldn't really ignore. And that set me down that pathway of an MS diagnosis, right in the middle of like all these hopes and dreams and excitement of what am I going to do as an occupational therapist? And now it's like, wow, this is going to be a big life change. But I guess who better than an OT to handle such a complex diagnosis and all the unknowns that kind of come with that.
Yeah. How did you process that in the midst of grad school? Like you said, you go there because you've got all these big dreams and you think you're like, yes, this is it. I've dialed it. I'm going to grad school for this. Yeah. And I know this is what I'm going to do with my life. And like this exciting sort of clarifying step. And then you get this diagnosis in the middle of it and you go, oh, yeah, I might have to rethink everything. Like, how do you navigate a life change like that?
Yeah, there is a moment of like, what now? But I think for me, once you get through that denial phase of this isn't what's really happening, and like, okay, this is actually happening. This is your life. Sports, if I can be honest, was what helped me with dealing with it. Your whole life in sports teaches you how to have an error or you're way behind. You're trying to catch up in the scoreboard, and it's just like this is our situation. We got a couple innings to come back, or you made an error and now you need to make up for it. And I think that mentality of just like next play mentality is what helped me get through my MS diagnosis of like, all right, next play. So I quickly switched to getting my doctorate, knowing I wouldn't be able to be a clinician for very long, and switched to teaching. And I mean, teaching was always probably going to be in the cards, knowing I love coaching, I love mentoring. And so it happened a little sooner than I expected, but a fantastic alternate for me. But yeah, it's that sports, that next play mentality, I think was so important for me.
That's something that I think doesn't get touched on with sport. Like we always talk about the lessons within sports, right? And that applies to, right? Like I didn't even compete in college. I was a gymnast growing up, and that's a sport that for the most part at 16, you've outgrown your shelf life for, right? And so I didn't even compete in college, but even outside of, those childhood lessons, you talk about that next play mentality. It's something that I think in sports, we always talk about like, oh yeah, you learn these lessons, but here you are applying it in real time, in real life to something that means way more than any game ever will. Was that something that you realized in the moment, or was it something that as you've moved forward with life, with this diagnosis, with seeing where it can go, you've kind of looked back and realized like, oh yeah, I was leaning on this sports lesson that I learned at 12 years old when we were trailing by 2 and we only had 6 at-bats left, 6 strikeouts left to get back in the game? Or was that something that you had to wait until later to kind of let sink in? Or were you aware enough of what was happening at the time to be like, cool, I actually know how to deal with this?
Yeah, I think it's just so ingrained in us as athletes. That lesson happens over and over and over. Next play, next play, next play. You can't mull on what just happened. We need to move forward. You need to figure, take what you've got and figure it out. That has just become who I am and how I deal with things. And that I didn't necessarily notice that maybe came from sports until I really sat and reflected on, when I was doing some of the coaching and now as a professor, a lot of my teaching philosophy is based on my coaching philosophies, and just thought about what is the deeper meaning for sports. And our head coach, Joe Delagrave, has us reflect on that a lot. Like, you aren't just Paralympic athletes. What else are you doing? How are you allowing this sport to change your life and what you can do within your community and for yourself and your families? And how are you going to let it impact you? And that's been a huge reflection for me, and honestly a part of why I love advocating for females in sports and girls to have opportunities, because sports and participating in sports and participating in competitive sports helps develop so many leadership skills and opportunities to fail and know that you're going to be okay, and that you can learn from that failure and come out better on the other side. And there's so many valuable life lessons that I think we need to continue to have opportunities for any athlete. But for me, obviously, with my platform, for girls to have that opportunity.
Well, and the statistics show, right, that a lot of just the reality is less girls are staying in sport longer than their male counterparts, just because of the opportunities, because of the resources available and things like that. And so it's so interesting to hear you talk about that, because I think that as an athlete, it is so important to reflect on the lessons we learned. Like I think about gymnastics and now surfing for me, and I think about the perfectionism that I believe is possible. That's one of the things that I've almost had to unlearn from my sport, is that if I can get a perfect 10, that means I can be perfect, right? But there's also an element of like, I have to unlearn that while at the same time lean into the lessons that I did learn that were really valuable. Like, hey, yeah, you made a mistake on this tumbling pass, but guess what? You got another one and you can do it again. And so it's cool to hear you realize in the moment of a life altering diagnosis that those lessons that maybe you didn't even know you were learning as a kid come into play. So as you move through this diagnosis, when did it go from, okay, this is a diagnosis that I have to learn to live with, to, oh, wait a minute, this is a diagnosis that can actually get me somewhere that I never would have been able to go had I not gotten this diagnosis, to the point of representing Team USA?
I think there's been a couple moments throughout the journey where it's like, oh, this diagnosis and what I've gone through can actually help me relate to others and help others. The biggest one, the first one anyway, would have been when I was a professor. Started becoming a professor in 2021, fall of 2021, and utilizing some of those experiences to relate to my students and some of the things that they were going through, and helping them understand my lived experience so they could help their future patients. And then I think everything from then, because that was really for me a shift in 2021 of really accepting my disability identity as a person with MS, as a person with a disability, and saying, all right, this is the situation. What are you going to do with it? What are the positive things that can come out of it? Not just my whole life is surrounded on focusing on my limitations because of my MS. And really, once that shift happened, everything is just, it feels like it's just fallen in my lap. I'm sure some of them I've worked for, but
I would say so.
amazing opportunities that just keep coming my way to be able to use those experiences and some of the setbacks and some of the victories and share those with others who maybe need to hear those moments right now.
So you said 2021 was the year that you really went from like, okay, I can live with this diagnosis or I can thrive with this diagnosis. Yeah. And here's how I'm choosing to do it. Very fortuitous, if you will. I don't even know if that's the right word, but it's I'll say fortuitous to have already volunteered with wheelchair rugby to now with this diagnosis, you transition to not a volunteer, but an actual participant. What was it like the first time you went from volunteer and watching these players compete to getting in the chair and competing yourself? Like, what was the thing that you were like, oh, like, what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, it certainly turned some heads. A lot of people were double takes of like, wait, wasn't she the volunteer that was up and running not so long ago? And so part of it was that having to deal with some of that, honestly, and like maybe a more of a negative aspect of having to help educate others and people understand my transition and being open and vulnerable and sharing my story of how did I end up becoming a player. But once I had that opportunity to play and jump in the chair and, it's kind of neat to have, so most new players, they don't really know what's going on out there. They don't know what they're doing. And so nobody really bothers too much with them. And so I remember very vividly being in my first true competition, and I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and on the court, and nobody's paying attention to me whatsoever. That nobody's guarding me. It's like, oh, it's just this new player. And it maybe took them 3 plays to be like, where's the girl? You need to find the girl.
Find the girl. Yeah. She's going to be a problem.
Yeah. So I think, that's really kind of a rewarding feeling to have that respect on the court and have it so quickly. And now, luckily, I don't think I'm known as the girl anymore. I think most people know me as Sarah. But, the opportunity to build relationships in the last couple of years, both in our rugby community here in the United States, as well as internationally, has been a really fun thing to do as a player and feel kind of connected to the game in a different way.
It was interesting. I was reading after the Paralympic roster officially got announced, I was reading some of the articles that came out, and Chuck, your team captain, he had a quote that essentially went, hey, you can see Sarah on the roster and be like, oh, okay, maybe like she's the only woman for Team USA. What are they trying to do here? And he was like, do not make the mistake of discounting Sarah as a player, because this woman has earned her spot and she is going to be an asset for us in Paris 2024. How has it felt to almost go back to your roots a little bit of having a team of all guys, right? Similar to growing up and playing with your brother. How has it felt to almost go back to a feeling that you knew and have really fond memories of as a child to now that's a part of your Team USA story?
Yeah, and if I can go back just briefly to talk about that comment from our captain, Chuck Aoki, of, that Sarah has earned her spot on this team and is somebody that, this team counts on, has been really important to me, particularly if I'm going to be the first female named to this team, that I want to make sure that I'm somebody who is contributing, that it's not just this story of, oh, we've got this female and she's on the team and go us, and I'm sitting at the end of the bench all the time. I work my butt off to make sure if I'm going to be named, I want to be named and I want to be relevant and I want to show. I think that's what goes towards showing that females can really make an impact and be a valuable resource for teams, even if they're teams that are often considered male dominant. And so I think that's been a little bit of a motivator in the back of my head of not just trying to prove the guys wrong, but to make sure that I'm contributing, that I was show the world I was chosen to be on this team because I can play rugby, not because I'm a female.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think is so, it's like frustratingly necessary in a way, right? Because like you want to just be like, of course, Sarah Adam made this team because she is a boss rugby player, because she's going to help us win gold for the first time since 2008 in our dream world, right? But what do you think, what does it say about sort of the necessity of saying, hey, as the first, I want you to know I'm not a token. I'm not here to like check this box for you. I'm here to make an impact.
Yeah, that's always in the background, right? Is that we know there are some people that are going to look at it and question, why are they on this team? Did they earn this? Are they as good as, if they were a male, would they have been selected for this team? And I hate that that's how it is, but I think that's where we're still at a little bit. We're on the upswing out of it. And I think that's really important, is that people are starting to see us for the athletes that we show ourselves to be on the court, and show that you can't question it. We're a good athlete, whether we're shooting from the women's 3-point or the men's 3-point. We're going to still compete, and we're, show that we're valuable on that court.
Yeah, listen, I've seen the highlights. I'm not one who needs to be convinced. Like, I cannot wait to see you in Paris. But for those who have not gotten a chance to see you play wheelchair rugby, who is Sarah Adam, the player?
I think for me, on a couple of our lineups that they get to be on the court. It's kind of like hockey, where you have different lines that are coming on and off the court and that gel together. And fortunate enough to have gelled with a lot of my teammates on that court that help create these lines that are just deadly lines that are really going to be very competitive against some of these teams like Australia and Japan, and just fit right in with the styles of my teammates that have been on this team for years and years. Kind of molded my style of play to be able to fit into a lot of those lines as well. But I think I'm someone who's going to go out there and be pretty fierce. I like talking on the court, so you see me talking a lot, communicating with my teammates.
Is it trash talk or is it communicating?
Oh, I wish I was good at chirping. I can't trash talk. I leave that to some of our other players. And our captain, team captain Eric Newby's pretty good at that, so I'll let him do the trash talk. But I like leading and talking to my teammates out there and kind of directing traffic. Really important. Chuck Aoki, who's obviously our star player, he never leaves the court. He's just that good. He's that big of a difference maker. And so for me, when I'm out there with Chuck, I want my role to be to take off some of that pressure off of him, take some of that mental load off of him, and be able to carry the ball for a couple plays, give him a little break, make sure I can be the leader on that court and communicating and directing and talking, so that the lines can run the way that they need to run.
How would you describe your playing style? You keep talking about how you've sort of adapted to the players that are already on Team USA, maybe leaning into some of your own athletic background. How would you describe your playing style as a wheelchair rugby athlete?
I would say my playing style is cerebral. It has to be, because I'm not this huge bulky guy. I have to be a little bit smarter. Play smart, play calm and methodical, which works really well with the offense that we run. USA offense is run calm, methodical, slow, work your way up the court. And then our defense is just kind of balls out, go hard, create chaos for the other team. And so it works perfectly into the type of player that I enjoy being. We have a lot of great passers, great hands out there. So using my softball background for a lot of the passing and catching game that allows us to move that ball up the court. But certainly keeping it high speed when it needs to be. You can put the pedal to the metal when you need to, but also understanding there's a lot of benefit for us and our team in the way that we play to like slow things down, keep things calm out there.
Describe to me how it feels, right? Because I mean, I'm 5'4", right around 120, same thing. And I tend to, like, if there's a game I'm playing, I don't care who's playing against me. I don't care what the competitive, like, I don't care if it's all guys who outweigh me by 100 pounds. Like, I'm going in and I'm going hard. What does it feel like for you to have a collision that you come out on top of against some of these guys?
I've had a couple. It's actually in Japan last year that I took out one of the main players for Australia and broke the front wheel on his chair, just cracked it right in half, which doesn't happen very often. So, and I think it kind of shocked him too when I hit him and like seeing that, oh, this girl just flipped me in my chair. It's hopefully a little humbling for him. Yeah, I mean, it feels great to be able to. It's a key strategic part of the game to be able to do that, be able to throw your hips into it and knock somebody over. And so for me, to be honest, it's just me being able to do my role on this team and do my part for this team. And part of that is going and hitting someone and hitting them hard and giving them the wake up call.
One of the things that I thought was so interesting in that Murderball documentary was the reality that everyone is going to get flipped over and you're probably going to land on your head at some point or another. Okay. Don't tell, sorry, Mom. Don't tell Mom. Mom's not listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
How often, I mean, I explain to somebody who has never been in one of these collisions, what does it feel like?
To be honest, I'd say the chair takes most of it most of the time. I mean, it's certainly, you feel it rattle through your whole body when you're hitting somebody full speed head on. When you flip over, there's been a lot of injuries, concussions, and fingers getting jammed and hit, and it's a little brutal. It becomes a bit of a punching match. So you're technically not supposed to. It's a foul if you touch the body of the other person. So they can like try to get the ball out of my lap, but if they're grabbing and yanking on my arms, that's a foul. But sure, you could imagine, and I like that they do this, but the referees kind of play it like hockey rules. We want the game to keep going. We don't want to have to be blowing the whistle and putting someone in the penalty box all the time. So they let a lot of things go. And that means getting, punched in the face and hit. And to me, it just kind of fuels that fire. I have a very, don't tell me what I can't do type of mentality, and go out there and play fiercely and throw a couple punches back every now and then.
Yes, we will throw a couple punches back. I cannot wait to see that. So I told you that Paralympics, obviously, wheelchair rugby got added to the roster in 2000. Since then, Team USA has medaled at every single games, but has not won gold since Beijing. What is it going to take for this team 2024 in Paris to get back to the top of that medal stand?
Yeah, there's a couple veterans on this team, 6 of them that have been to several of those where they're this close and getting silver. And I can't even imagine the heartbreak of working that hard. Honestly, not just that year, but for 4 years leading into it, all the work that you put in and to come up short. And I think the sting of a lot of that is part of what's fueling it. There's a lot of veterans that this may be their last year, and wanting to kind of come out on top before they head out. But I also just think right now we have a brand new coach, head coach Joe Delagrave, that took over after Tokyo. He was a phenomenal player for the team, and is now our coach, and just a brilliant rugby mind that is implementing some new things that the rugby world has never seen before. And I think it's a winning recipe, and everybody's bought in. The entire team absolutely run through a brick wall for that guy and what his strategy and tactics are and the plan. And some great leaders with Chuck Aoki and Eric Newby, our team captains, that are helping kind of facilitate not only that plan, but the team culture as well. One that's just, we're in this together. We're going to put the work in off the court, build the relationships, study the game, come out being, a really cerebral team as one that's going to be the key to beating some of these other teams that work off of brute force.
So you think this is the year? This could be the one that Team USA gets back to
all the pieces of the puzzle are there. We just need to kind of keep it together. It's 5 games in 5 days, which is a lot. It's a lot for our bodies to take. That's a lot for our minds to have to, get through one game and then switch to a new opponent. And a lot of that prep happens now so that we can make sure during the games we can kind of take a mental break for a little bit and then just jump right back in. But I think all the pieces are absolutely there if we just stick to our game plan, and support each other through the mistakes that are bound to happen and quickly recover. And like I said, next play mentality. Yep.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, we're going to switch gears now in the podcast because, like we know, this podcast is the media partner is the Sports Bra in Portland, Oregon. And so there's going to be a power brunch on the Sunday before this episode drops worldwide. And it's going to be in person in Portland. So one of the things that we ask each guest is for your favorite cocktail or mocktail, because that is going to be the featured drink at the Bra the week of your episode.
Okay, first off, love a good brunch. Maybe one of my favorites to do on a Sunday.
A power brunch, right?
Power brunch, yeah. If we're talking at a brunch, favorite one is the Bloody Mary. A good, we're not talking, don't stack it high with a whole bunch of fluff. I just want a good, solid, spicy Bloody Mary. Yeah.
So what is without a fluff? What is without fluff?
Well, there's some that they start adding cheeseburgers and hot dog and things that are coming out the top. I don't want the food. I want the drink.
I just want the drink. Okay, so if it's a brunch cocktail, what if it's a everyday cocktail?
Yeah, regular cocktail. I'm known for enjoying bourbon. Big fan of bourbon.
I'm a whiskey girl myself.
Yeah, I'd say straight most of the time, but a good Manhattan every now and then. Yeah.
Okay, I like it. Okay, so we'll work that into the sports bra the week of this episode. So now we'll do quick rapid fire questions, okay? And I'll tell you that if we do this actually rapid fire, it'll be the first time all season because I tend to love the story of the answer to the rapid fire. So we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
Okay.
Where is what you tell me? Short answers.
Yep.
All
Yep,
right.
short answer, because otherwise your girl's gonna want to know all the background, all the
And
history,
well,
and if we get there, it's fine.
I'm
Exactly.
saying,
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. I'm a little long-winded at times, so I'll try to restrain myself.
No, listen, it's fine. It's fine. We're
Right.
gonna get through it. Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Gotta have the caffeine.
With or without creamer?
Black. You never know when you're gonna have cream available. So black.
I really wish I could get behind that. Here we go. Story. I can't do it without creamer. It's one of my vices. Okay. Favorite ice cream. Okay, we'll work on it. Favorite ice cream flavor.
Mint chocolate chip. Put it in all my protein shakes. Eat it all the time.
Oh, okay. Go-to meal before or after playing wheelchair rugby?
Peanut butter and jelly. We actually have like a staff member that's just constantly making peanut butter and jellies the entire competition. I don't know how many we go through, but we should count sometime.
Okay, you do that. Count for me. I want to know how many you go through. Are you a night owl or an early bird?
Night owl. Yeah.
Night owl. Okay. Where is your favorite place that your sport has taken you?
We were just in Cardiff in Wales. And that was pretty amazing. Beautiful town, beautiful like castles and churches, and yeah. Weather wasn't. I mean, it's still cold and windy. We're in Wales, but beautiful. Yeah.
Awesome. If you were not a wheelchair rugby Paralympian, what sport would you want to be competing in?
I so badly want to try bobsledding. So if anybody has a bobsledding hookup, I would absolutely. I got to be in the front. Like there's no running to get in. I just need the little one in the front steering. I think they steer in the front too. So best of luck.
Okay.
Me. Yeah.
Okay, so we're putting that out in the universe. We're going from we're gonna do summer and winter athlete. You wouldn't be the first, but that would be unique to be wheelchair rugby and bobsled.
Yeah, well, I need it to be winter because I got to stick with the rugby for the summer. So yeah.
Exactly.
Cross training.
Cross training. Oh, for sure. Cerebral. That the front of the bobsled seems cerebral.
Yeah,
if you ask me, as somebody
that's the whole goal.
I grew up in San Diego, and I don't know anything about it like much at all. But that's fine.
Yeah, anything where the goal is just go fast. I'm here for that.
That's your thing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your favorite dessert?
I gotta be honest. No, people don't hate me for this. I don't really like desserts that much. I could go
other than mint chocolate chip,
yeah, with the shakes on that one. But every now and then too, just like a warm brownie with vanilla ice cream on top. Something about that warm cold combo
and the gooiness.
Yeah, just
has to be a gooey brownie. Yeah.
Very much so.
I'm with you.
Talking my language.
Very with you. All right. What is your dream vacation spot?
Anywhere on a beach. Keep me warm. Relax. No decisions. That's my one vacation rule. I want to make no decisions.
I do think. Have you tried surfing yet?
I have not tried surfing. I absolutely would though.
I think that's the next one. I think we're gonna do that. I think we're gonna get you to my hometown of San Diego, exactly, and we're gonna get Elena Nichols out there, and we're gonna get you surfing. Because if you like going fast, nothing's better than going fast and not having to do anything to go.
I love fast and water.
All for you.
Yeah.
Come on, this is next. Okay, you go win the gold, then we'll meet you in San Diego. We'll have a surf session.
You're on.
What is the best piece of advice you have ever gotten?
Just keep moving forward. Just even when you can't see the full picture of things, you don't know what's coming down the road. Just take that next step and then go from there. Make a decision, I guess, for me. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the collisions that happen in wheelchair rugby. What is the wildest mishap you have ever had while playing your sport?
Wildest mishap? I mean,
trying to make it not be like most dangerous. trying to ease the language there a little bit.
Like I said, I still have a mother who every time I go down, she makes me, when I come up and it's being televised, to give her the thumbs up that I'm okay. So I'm trying not to come up with one that was early.
Abby Wambach used to do that.
Yeah. If that's all I got to do to keep mom happy, then we're probably doing okay. I think my biggest rugby mishap, though, would be early on in my career. And thank God it was just in a training session, but I got the ball and scored in the wrong goal. And to this day, anytime that at halftime, my teammates are like, Sarah, we're scoring that way. It's been 3 years and it's still, Sarah, we're scoring that way.
Oh no. We love a mistake that won't get let go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Julie, so when you're in the huddle in Paris and we're watching and your entire team is pointing at the goal
Yeah,
that
if
you're
you see them
scoring.
do this as we're getting on the court, that's them giving me a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, duly noted.
Yeah.
And then the last thing for you, two-part question. What does powerful mean to you?
I think it's finding that one activity or many activities that just make you feel comfortable in your own skin and confident and excited and passionate and like just can't wait to get back to doing it. And for me, that's being on the rugby court. Like I just feel so confident and everything just feels so smooth and easy and fun and challenging in all the right ways. And yeah, I think to me, that's what that powerful means.
So you kind of answered the second part of that question, but when is the time that you feel the most powerful?
Yeah, like I said, either being on the rugby court, when I'm teaching my students too, it's just like that. Everything kind of connects where you just feel really prepared. This is what you're good at. You found the thing you love doing, the thing that you are passionate and excited about. And you can see it. And, I can feel it in myself when it happens. And I love seeing it in others as well when they find that one thing that they're just like, this is my jam. This is what I love doing. This is what I'm really good at. And you kind of get in that flow state. It's exciting.
What do you want people to know about the Paralympic movement coming into 2024?
I think, the Paralympic movement continues to grow in popularity and visibility. We've got a lot more work to do, but for people to see us as elite athletes that are no different than our Olympic counterparts, we are all training extremely hard to compete in our sport. It's just, yes, our sport looks different than what people are used to seeing, but they're just as exciting to watch and to fall in love with. And I think the more visibility that we can have and support, we know people are going to fall in love with our stories. We know people are going to fall in love with our sports. We just need the opportunity to tell those stories. And I think that's what's happening in the media today is more opportunities, more visibility. And it's important beyond just us that are currently as athletes, as para-athletes. It's for the higher meaning of it is for the kid that just had a spinal cord injury and is in rehab that's 22 years old and thinks, what am I going to do with my life? What now? Or the parent who has a 3-year-old with spina bifida and doesn't know what their future is going to look like. What are they going to do? To be able to see this route of adaptive sports that can reconnect you with some level of what we know is normalcy. And something to be passionate about and strive for. And the lessons that you can learn from being able to participate in adaptive sport is just so important to get people exposed to it, to know that it's out there and know there's a lot of different sports and that you can find anybody of any functional ability can find one that fits them and that they're passionate about and that makes them feel powerful.
So I want to give you an opportunity here to talk directly to that person, that 22-year-old who just had a spinal cord injury and is wondering, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives, to the girl who's in a wheelchair and really crazy passionate about rugby and sees you, the very first woman competing for Team USA in wheelchair Paralympic rugby. What do you want to say to them?
I want to say, just step out of that comfort zone and try it. Whatever it is that you kind of got your eye on and you're maybe a little interested and you've been scrolling on social media and you see it and it looks kind of interesting and exciting, just put yourself out there and try it. Particularly any para-athlete community is just so welcoming and excited to share what we love with others and get others involved and passionate about it as well. And, trying to work with that next generation. And it goes beyond sport. It goes into being able to know, how do I get back to school? How do I get back to driving? How do I go travel the world and it not be this big fuss and to do? It just, it can be simple and you can really, like, our diagnosis, our disability, our functional limitations don't have to limit our lives and what they are composed of. There's just this whole world that still exists. And you just need to find those connections and those people that can help show you that. And I think the best way, by far and away, the best way to get connected to that and get connected to the disability community is through adaptive sports.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for joining this episode of the Powerful Podcast. Cannot wait to root you and Team USA on in just a few weeks here in Paris 2024. Here's hoping y'all bring home that gold, but we are so proud of who you are as a person, and we're so grateful for you spending the time with us here today.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
This is a reminder to check us out every Tuesday all summer long, everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.